Okay, this is my MGTF. Bought her about a month ago. Haven't had much chance to use it, but just been tinkering with it, I suppose. When I was test driving, I drove one that had got daytime running lights on it, and when I returned from the test drive, my wife commented on how much more visible it was on the road. So I thought I'd put some daytime running lights on it. I didn't like the ones that just went into the recess at the front, down by the fog lights, so there was nothing wrong with them. I just didn't fancy them. What I really fancied was the halo or the angel eyes. I wasn't brave enough to actually remove the lens from the headlight. You can do it with a heat gun or oven bake them and then separate them. I just didn't think that was beyond my skill sets. And unfortunately my budget didn't run to having them done professionally, although they did look like they were really good jobs and probably well worth the money. It was just not something I could afford at the moment. So scouting around online, I've come up and I've spotted these things called ultra thin daylight running. So I've ordered some, and we're going to fit them and see how they go. Okay, before we start putting it on the car, I thought it'd be worth just looking at the components I bought. This is actually the ultra thin lights. I bought two sets of these, and I'm thinking of trying to use them on the back as well. So these are the actual running lights and chasing amber indicators. Got some sticky back tape on it. Doesn't look great quality, but I'm sure it'll be fine. Don't know if you can see that, but that doesn't look particularly waterproof. I'll probably put a bit of sealant around that or cover that up somehow before I install it fully. Also, these wires look extremely thin. Not 100% the best way of connecting these to the actual switch, but I'll sort that out once I start installing it all. There's plenty of length of wire, so it's quite easy to manipulate it around the back of the headlight. These are about £9 on eBay. I think I paid a few quid more and got it from Amazon just to have it delivered quickly. Comes with a wipe, so you can just clean the surface before you put the sticky on, and just a couple of small cable ties to tidy it all up. Like I say, these wires look very thin. Maybe we'll be able to connect it straight by pushing it into the existing electric wires, or maybe a bit of solder. I'll sort that out. You've got the ground, the earth, and then you've got your positive. That'll come from the daylight running switches, and then you've got the one to the indicator. What I'm planning to do is put that straight into the indicator light. That one will go through the switch, and that one will go to earth. These are very bright when fitted, so over night time when you've got the headlights on, they have to dim. If you wired this up directly, obviously there's no dimming element there, so you would have to then, so that's why I've got the daylight running switch, which will actually dim the lights once they're all installed. So next time you see them, they'll be going onto the vehicle. Right, what you've got here is your DRL controller. This is the thing that switches the lights on and off, and also dims them for nighttime running. As you can see, it's already partially installed in the car. That's basically because I started doing it before I thought about videoing it. But I will just quickly go through the cables with you. It looks like a lot, but when you break them down, it is quite simple. First cables come off, just go straight down to a fused positive cable connected directly to your battery, and then the negative connected to your batteries. There's your main power supply in. This needs to be switched on and off when the car is running. So you have to connect a cable to an ACC supply. So that's a fuse on the fuse board that only is powered when the ignition is on and the car is running. This cable, although it's all covered in a black sheathing here, is a blue coloured cable. I've run it straight through a grommet in the firewall behind the dash to the fuse board, where I've tapped into a fuse using one of the piggyback fuse adapters, which I'll show you later. I will put a little bit of seal around there just in case, although I have made a very small hole and it's a good fit. The next wire I'm going to show you, I'm just going to drop the controller down there, is again, it comes from the main body and it's a white cable that I've scotch clipped straight into your headlight. Reason for that is this is a daylight running system, so when you're running the car with headlights off, these are really nice and bright, but then of an evening when your headlights are on, you have to dim the system so it doesn't dazzle oncoming drivers. So when the car's running, it's on full power, nice and bright. Put on your headlights, it reduces the power to them by about 50% and dims them down. Again, quite a simple, straightforward scotch clip. There's another cable here which I won't be using, just a green one. That one, if you connect it to the horn, it actually strobes the lights when you bib the horn. It's not a function that I want, so I'm just going to leave that one. I'll cut it down, tape it up, and just pop it out of the way when it's done. The other wires are the wires that go straight to the actual lights themselves, your DRLs that we fit in the ultra thin DRLs. They'll connect straight through to positive and negative, and the yellow cable I've got here, if you want to use that, you can connect that to your indicators, and what it will do, it will pulse this power supply to the lights, so your white light will flash on and off. Now, as I'm going to use the orange chasers on mine, you don't need or want that. So again, when it's all finished, I'll just cut that off, put it in a block, tidy it all up to make sure there's no electrical supplies anywhere, and tidy it all up from there. When I've finished with it all, basically I'll mount it somewhere perhaps like that. Just find a nice mounting point. I've got a hole there with the thread in, so I'll probably just find a bolt it straight to there. Cable tie it all together so it's nice and neat. I might even tape it together, and just that should do. Okay, to connect the switch for the daytime running lights, you need to find a power source, an ACC power source, an accessory power source. Now these are the ones that are off when the ignition is off. When you turn the ignition off, you get a power supply. I'll show you on the car in a little while, but I just thought I'd show you these. They're called adder circuits, sometimes piggyback circuits, and they're just a good way to splice into your fuse board, but in a safe way. I have seen, and I've actually got one on my car, not done by me but done by somebody else. What people sometimes do when they want to add a circuit, they'll literally twist a wire around a fuse like that and then push that into the fuse board. So you've got that pushed into the fuse board like that. I wasn't happy doing that, so I've bought one of these. Now you only actually need one of these to do the job, but I'd got somebody else prior to me had done the method I've just showed you, so I'm going to repair that at the same time. For an individual one, I think they're about less than £2 off eBay. I think I paid about 5 or 6 quid for a pack, but this came with fuses and the connectors to join it up. So if you can imagine, that would be the socket in your fuse board, and you'd normally just have a fuse in it like that. Again, I'll show you once we get to the car, but it might not be quite so clearly seen underneath the fuse board. So what you do is you remove the fuse and you put in one of the piggybacks. The lower of the two holes is the existing fuse. So whatever one you're tapping into, that then becomes the fuse for the one you've tapped into. The upper one, I'm just putting any fuses in at the moment just to demonstrate. The upper one becomes the fuse for that. But now on mine, it will go straight from there by one of these connectors, connected into there, to actually run the power supply for the daytime running lights. I'll show you it all in situation when it's finished, but I thought it's worth having a close-up look while it's still out. Okay, you should be able to see the fuse board from there. I'm just going to point out, you know, I said earlier about connecting a wire just to one side of the fuse. I don't know if you can see where I'm pointing there. That wire there just is wrapped around one blade of the fuse. You see it's already alive there. Now that's a permanent live because the ignition is currently switched off. What I'm looking for now is something that only comes on when the ignition is on. I've already tested this, so I know that this one, you see no light there, no continuity, so that's definitely a switched one. As soon as I switch on the ignition, hopefully you'll see the little red light. That means this one is suitable to use for your daytime running lights. Okay, I'll switch the ignition back off now, and I'll simply pull that fuse. I'd only push it in gently and use one of these piggybacks. Now, I've said before, the lower one of the two is the existing one, so I'm going to push that in because it was a 10 amp fuse and it is now still a 10 amp fuse. So as soon as I do that, whatever that fuse was running, which will still continue. I think it was the windscreen wipers, so that's still going to work, the windscreen wipers. But then I'm going to add, I've only got a 5 amp fuse at the moment, so I thought I'd go another 10. So I'll just drop a 5 amp in there for the time being. Now that will run this spur. So by pushing that in there, nice and firm, and then connecting this. Now this one goes all the way through to the daylight running switches. Okay, coming off the unit, it's the blue wire, but I've had to join it further back and I haven't got any blue, so I've just used the red. That simply pushes in there, and now you've got your ACC running all the way to your switch for the daylight running lights, and it's nice, neat, not worried about any unhappy with any of the wiring, and hopefully that should run fine. I'll just test it again. I'll put the ignition on and I'll just drop my tester into the side of this here, and hopefully we should see a light come on. There we go, the red light's on and the red light's off. Let's just turn it off to make sure we shouldn't get it now. And there you go, no red light. So now we've got the ACC power running all the way through to the switching unit. Okay, before I decided to wire it all in, I thought it was best just to test these lights. Now if I touch this one, we should get a chasing amber, which hopefully you can see there. And when I connect this, we should get a nice bright white light. And you see it's red. It's just gone off there. It's only a temporary connection, you know. And you can see it's red. Now I definitely ordered white stroke amber, but they sent me red stroke amber. So I won't be able to use these on the front. I am, however, going to use them on the rear of the car, and I've ordered a set of white stroke amber. So it's always worth testing everything before you install it on the car. Right, I'm hoping you're going to be able to see this. It's going to be a bit tricky because obviously we've got the light coming in and working in shade on the video. What I'm going to do now is fit the rear indicators. Now when I first bought these, I thought, well, I did order white with an amber flashing. As you saw from a previous test, they ended up being red with an amber flashing. Now obviously I've sent back the others for the front, and but I thought I might as well use these ones on the back. Originally my plan was to have the indicators on the rear and then use the white light and connect it and splice it into the reversing light. But obviously that's now not going to happen. So I've decided I'm going to splice them into the brake lights. Very simple, just push in. You'll still get all your normal brake lights. You'll get the brake lights, you'll get the one on the boot, but you'll also get an additional red brake light, which is never a bad thing. When you switch on the indicators take over the light and it just becomes a chasing indicator. So what I've done there, not everyone might have that panel, but I've just removed the panel. The next thing to do is to actually remove the lights. It's a little bit tricky. Oh, there we go, the lights come out. And then what I'll do is remove the actual socket. It's been on there a while. There you go, there's the socket off. Okay, now I'll just show you, I have tested these before, and I can tell you that the middle one, the black one there, is the earth, then you've got the indicator, and then you've got your stop light. So I know which ones I'm going to push them into, but before I actually put it all back together, I will just double check those. Okay, so an initial, just to show you how it works. The black one will slide into where the black one goes, and it just pushes underneath there, simple as that. Nice good connection. Now when you actually push it all back together, that folds over and locks in really nice and tight. The yellow one, which is your indicator, goes into the indicator port. There we go, nice and in, and the brake lights go into there. Like I say, these are additional brake lights, so you've still got your main brake lights, obviously. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put on the four-way flashes and see if we get some. Okay, as you can see there, there's the four-way flashes chasing around. Okay, now I won't be able to test the brake lights because I'm on my own, but if I was to press the brake lights, that would just turn red. Okay. Now to put this back together, I'm just going to loosen off the actual light. No need to take it off fully because you're just going to feed this chaser through the light. So I'm just going to undo those. Obviously if you want to take it off, it's easier for you, that's absolutely fine. I just try to keep everything as intact as much as possible, remove as little as possible. Right, so there we go, the lights come out. Now, this light now will go through there. Now I want it to come out through the side there, so I'm just going to work it through the side. There we go. And now it's, there we go. And that is now on the exterior of the light. Now I'll show you the fitting of that in a moment. So, there we go. The light then can be pushed just back into position. Just goes like that, back into position. A little click. Now I'm not going to screw that up tight until I've actually positioned the light on. But that's the basic part. Now obviously what I would do now is tighten this all back up, fit the cover, tighten the cover, test everything again, make sure it's all working, and then finally position the lights on the lens outside, which I'll do now. Right, I'm going to start attaching the actual chasing light to the lens now. What I've decided to do is just give this a bit of a clean up. It does come with an alcohol wipe, but I just thought put a little bit of tea cut on actually. It just gets everything off and gets all the grime off and everything. It won't hurt the lens. So I'll just put a little bit of tea cut across the top. You can see the lens is still loose. I've decided it's best not to do it. Tighten it up until it's fitted. Right, I've already done the other side. We want both the same length, obviously. So I'm looking to cut it on that line. It's got marks where you can cut it so you don't break the circuits all the way around, as you can probably see there. But I'm looking just to cut it on that one. So that one there, and there you go. Now if you look at the original ones, just had a little blubber mastic inside it, just to give it a bit of waterproofing. That wasn't fancy, just some old squeezy I had from before. And I'm just going to put a tiny blob in there, just to seal it. Yeah. So you can see that just a little blob in there. There you go. Let's just put that back on. Yeah. Position that so it just, and I found that you want it so it's actually just touching the front of the lens, otherwise the boot lid obscures it a bit. So I'm just taking off the sticky back adhesive. Take a second. There we are. There we go. Now I'll get it positioned to start, and then as soon as it's on, you can just slowly feel it as you're following the line up. There we go. I've gone in a bit there. Make sure you follow that line, otherwise, as I say, the boot lid just starts to hide it. I don't know what's happened here. The adhesive has gone a bit funny at that point. It's got a join on it or something. Just going to cut that and start again. Yeah. Be mindful of that. Obviously I wasn't aware that was going to happen. There we go. And I've got the stickiness back there. You can see just slowly following the line, and then when you get to this part here, you can just sort of work it in to the right. Now I'm going to actually have to take this off, I think. I didn't loosen it off quite enough. It's not giving me much room. The other side that went in without having to loosen the lens off, but just slightly tighter on this side. There we go, and that's all down. I'll just let that tape settle, and I'll put that all back together. And once that's all back in, should be good. I'll just wipe that off with a bit of there we go, and there we go. So I'll just put it all back together, test it, and then I'll show it you working. Okay, you can see the four-way hazards on there flashing away with the chasing lights. They are very bright actually. I'm not sure if the camera's picking it up, but they are nice and clear and bright, and you can see them from a good distance. I'll try filming again later when it's a bit dark. Okay, I've had the new lights delivered now. As you know, last time I had a red and amber ones delivered instead of the white and amber which I wanted. But before I put them on the car, I thought it was just worth showing you these, because although I ordered them off Amazon, virtually the same price, different supplier, they're actually a lot better quality. Actually come with instructions on how to fit. It comes with a little pack here of the Scotch clips, cleaning wipes and cable ties. But this is the bit that I'm most impressed with really. It's got now like a proper 3M tape on it. The cables are all covered in a nylon sheath to protect them. The controller block has got rubber grommets each end to stop water, and the cable to connect is a much thicker cable. Feels a lot sturdier than the originals. I have tested them, and this is definitely white and amber, but as I say, I just thought I'd show you them before I put them on the car, because I think I was quite impressed with these compared with the original. Now, just before I put all the wiring away and tidy it all up, I just thought I'd show you the connections I've actually made. For the indicators, I've spliced directly into the indicators just here. Now on this side it was the green and red that goes into port 5. On the other side it was the green and white that again goes into port 5. Now when I was showing you the DRL switches before, I was saying that the yellow cable actually isn't needed. Now when I came to test it all out, you do need to connect the yellow cable from the DRL switch into the indicators. So I've just soldered a joint to there together, soldered them all together. I've covered them with some tape. I've got some sleeving now to cover it all up with, but I thought I'd show you what I've done first. So as I say, that's connected to your indicator. That one goes to the lighting box and the other one goes to the DRL switch. I've already showed you behind here that the white switch goes to the headlights, so when you turn the headlights on and off, it actually dims it. There you go, you've got the foot brakes on now. And now if we take the foot brakes off and now indicate, and you got the indicator and then the other way. Okay. Now obviously you could use the red light. I've connected it to the foot brakes, but you could use it to your side lights, or you could even connect it to daylight running lights if you wanted that on as well. Okay, I just thought to show you the four-way flashes working on the front of the vehicle now. The camera doesn't pick them up quite as bright as they are, but you get a good idea of how they work. Obviously the original indicators are still there, so it's not like I've replaced them. I've just done these as additional. So yeah, I think they're quite good. They look nice. I'll just go and switch on the daylight. Okay, they're the daylight running lights. Again, the camera's not picking them up as bright as they actually are. They are quite bright, you can see them from a distance, but I've got to be honest, they're probably not as bright as I would have hoped for. Maybe if you're ordering some online, have a look at how many luminaires they're actually producing, because although it's okay, it's bright, you can see it and it definitely looks nice, it's not quite as dazzlingly bright as I would have hoped for daylight running lights.